Hi everybody, how you doing? It's Gary here, MexiGary on YouTube, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about, well, first of all, I wanted to thank you all for watching my YouTube videos, the tutorials that I had on the amazing GT-1, the Boss GT-1. Now, I got a couple of private messages saying, are you like an influencer for Boss or something? No, I'm not, and I've got nothing to do with Boss. I wish I bloody did, because it turns out I'm pretty good at selling their products. The amount of people on YouTube that have said, oh man, I'm totally buying this because of your demos and stuff, so thanks for the nice comments, but no thanks. I don't need to thank you for buying the shit, because I don't get anything from that. I just want my channel to be all about what other people's channels that I watch are about, which is making sure that we're all making the most out of the gear that's available to us, and especially people who might have shunned the digital thing for so long, like I did. And the reason I made the videos in the first place was because I was surprised at like how, I wouldn't say easy, but like practical these new little pedals have become. We all started off, well, depending on how old you are, we all started off with the old Zoom 505s and the pods, the amp top pods that you would have, because the pods didn't have foot switches. They at least had a foot switch you could add to the unit, I think, but I never actually owned one. I had the Zoom 505 and I'd done another Zoom, and I'm talking about 25 years ago. So the whole thing, just the fact that it was in its formative years, kind of put me off it for life, and I ended up just using real amps, real pedals for like 20 years basically. But ever since I came across this thing, and some of you guys might know if you saw my other videos, I'll try and remember to put the links up here to the tutorials as to how to get sounds on it, basic like amp simulation sounds. And then the second video was all about how to set it up like a stomp box, stomp board, so if you watch that one, or if you haven't, I basically set it up so that this is your delay, that's your modulation, that's your boost, the same way that you would with a normal pedal board, and that's your wah. And the great thing with this board as well, what I love most about it, is that a wah pedal and what's it called, the Digitech whammy, that'll take up as much space alone, just those two, as this thing does entirely. And yet you can set this to patch per patch, do what you need it to do, whether it's wah or whammy or even just volume. So it's really handy for that. And all those things are editable as well. You can even get like, you can change the type of wah that it is, like all the way from like Jim Dunlop, different styles of Jim Dunlop to, the Vox wah is a good one as well. There's another couple in there, but I just stick to the Jim Dunlop Crybaby one. So this video I wanted to make because after playing this unit for a few years now, coming on about 5 or 6 years now, because I got it about a year before lockdown, COVID, the old C word, or the other C word I should say. So I wanted to share a couple of things. There's no demos in this video, by the way. I'm not going to be demonstrating sounds. It's not even a tutorial as such. It's just opinions on what I've found over the 6 years that I've used this unit. Pros and cons. Maybe some of you could take some of it positively and maybe you'll choose not to buy it because of the negatives, but it depends what you're going to be using it for. So without much further ado, I want to say, first of all, the compressor on it is absolutely, I'm not a compressor aficionado. I've always just used the Boss compressor. I think I've got, what was the other one? I've had a Moore compressor, which is like Fisher Price stomp boxes. I wouldn't even bother, to be honest. But the other one was the one that Brad Paisley uses. Wampler, that's the one. So I had a Wampler compressor as well. But to be honest with you, yes, it can do a lot more than the Boss does. But as with every stomp box, most players will just find something that they find useful about it and just set it and forget it. Do you know what I mean? So any stomp box that's got more than like 3 or 4 knobs, I just think cool. It might be fun to use in the studio when you're looking for that certain sound. But I think generally, live speaking, you don't want to be bending over and changing your settings every other song, even if it is something like a compressor, because that's the whole point of having a stomp box, is so it's ready for you to play, ready for you to just smack and it's good to go. So that's my thoughts on the compressor. The delay, again, I don't really understand the whole thing about like boutique delays. I mean, I've always been happy with a DD3 or a DD6, which is in this pedal, which is inside the GT1. It's the same brain, it's the same chips, it's the same whatever it is. Fucking, again, I'm not tech savvy, but it's all the same shit that they're using. However, one thing, and I didn't really want to admit this to myself, but over time and switching, especially recently, I've been switching between this and an actual stomp box board using my, wait till I show you this. Hold on, I'm still here. The Boss BD2W, which is the Wazacraft, and yeah, it's got the classic and kind of standard tone switch. I think that's the only difference between it and the classic BD2, but it doesn't matter, because either or, whether you're using the Wazacraft one or the standard Boss BD2, you're going to feel the same thing that I do, I think. And the only other distortion pedal that I use is a Rat. I think it's a Rat 2, like the second version of the Rat, but it's basically the same thing. The one thing I've noticed is that the it's hard to say, but when it's engaged, the edges of your distortion sound are a bit round. And I mean this, don't need to come back at me about compressor settings or anything like that. I mean, even without the compressor, when everything's like, look at this. This is my board set up for when I'm using my Tom DeLonge style signature. It says, you won't be able to see this here, but it says amp T-Del Fay, and that's because that's the setting I use when I'm using a real amp, my Tom DeLonge style guitar strap with an Invader, as you probably know, and that's when because this is always delay and this is always boost, and the only thing that really changes through patches is this, and that can be any type of mod from like a phaser, flanger, chorus, could be auto wah if I'm feeling fruity, but on this one it's phaser. So anyway, amp T-Del Fay. So in this instance, when I'm using the Tom DeLonge guitar, this boost switch will be a Rat 2, right, whatever, or a Rat. It's a standard Rat sound. But I've just noticed that because I've been switching between the old school actual stomp boxes and this digital pedal, I just feel like, I don't know if it's tonally or some kind of like digital compression that's going on, again, regardless of the, that's why I pulled this up, because the compressor there is not engaged on this patch. And yet I'm still feeling this during use of this patch. There's just a bit of a roundedness to the gain, like the chunk, like you would feel when playing things like, you know, just power chords. If you're playing like a humbucker through, I mean, I use a Blues Junior, but or even a Hughes and Kettner head through the 4x12, you're just losing a bit of immediacy to your distorted sounds. And it's not that noticeable when you're playing lead, I don't think, but especially when you're playing like chunky chords. Like for me, it's always things like Basket Case or all the small things. I can just feel that the chunk isn't quite as immediate. It just seems to have a bit of roundedness to it. It's really hard to explain. And maybe I should have done an audible demonstration so that you could, but even then, I don't think you would get it over this media. I just think you would, it's maybe just a connection thing between your strings, like your fingers, your strings, the pedal, the amp, the speaker, coming back to your ears. There's just something about it that's just not as immediate as the as using the Rat or the Boss BD2. So just bear that in mind, and also bear in mind that this unit and a lot of others like it are under 200 quid. You know what I mean? This Boss Wazacraft was like something like 120 quid second hand. So sorry Boss, but we're not expecting you to put together an all-in-one you know, effects processor board that's going to match everybody's different, you know, pedal boards in terms of like real stomp boxes. So we're not expecting that, but I'm just letting people know that you'll get 80% of the, I've always said this in my videos, you'll get 80% of the way there with anything but the real thing. But it just depends how old school you want your sound to be, do you know what I mean? And I think certain people will understand that, and certain people will just go, why don't you just, 80% or 90% for 200 quid, that's fine. You know, but don't forget, like, I would never make an actual album. I would never put out any proper recordings using anything but the real thing. You know, you want your amps you want your real amps mic'd up. You want to be using the guitar with the best pickups possible. You want obviously great cables, that kind of goes without saying. But you want really great mics, and you want good preamps and things like that after the mics. And there's just no substitute for the real thing. But I'm just saying, if you are to use a unit like this, just be prepared for the fact that it's not going to be 100% of the way there. To be fair, a couple of other things I wanted to talk about was the modulation effects on this are bloody brilliant as well, but they work better if you're DIing, because modulation effects should ideally go through the effects loop of your amp. You know, even if you're using a normal, like a proper old school Stompbox board, you really want to be using the ideal gain, the ideal chain would be straight into your tuner, wah, compressor. This is my opinion, by the way. Then your main boosts, which for me is Blues Driver and Rat. Then MXR micro amp. Then that goes into the front of the amp, and then in the effects loop, you come out of that. It's called the 4-cable method, which my pal Eddie Trainer told me about years ago. And I've kind of lived by it, but I don't really get the chance too much because I'm playing much smaller gigs than, you know, he is, or some of the proper musicians. So when you're playing pub gigs, you just kind of got to deal with the smallest rig that you can get your hands on. So when you put the modulation effects like the phaser and the flanger and even delays through your effects loop, they just sound so much more potent. Like, they sound more immediate and so much more in your face. I've used the word immediate too many times today, but it sounds like it's meant to be right there in the chain. Whereas if you're using this straight into the front of the amp, as most people do with the pedal boards as well, like Stompbox boards, phaser is going right into the front, which is not ideal. You want the phaser to be after the preamp stage, but before the power amp stage, which putting it in the front is not going to do. So if you want clarity out of your modulation, you're not going to get it from this, because it doesn't even have an effects loop on this amp. Oh, on this, it doesn't have the 2-cable method. The 4-cable method in this. You could use it for that. If you just use this for modulation and run it through your amp, through the effects loop, but then you're getting really convoluted because then you're just using this for a modulation board and not using the gain stages on it. So it's a whole big rigmarole. But I just wanted to let you know that's where I'm at with the GT-1 right now. It has its uses. I still stand by everything I said in my previous videos. It really is, to me, the ultimate like toolbox. You know, I'm seeing other guys using helixes and that, and I'm like, it's fucking huge. You know, for what you're using it for, especially if you're going in the front of an amp, you're only using it for what you're getting out of this anyway. So, I don't know, it just excites me that technology is getting so good that something this size can compete with Helix in terms of tones and versatility. But there's going to be a lot of hate in the comments on here, I can tell, by and from Helix users or Fractals or what's the other one, the amp one, what's the amp modulator one? Kempers, yeah. Oh, those Kemper guys, they wind me up somewhat. I've had many arguments with them guys. But, not arguments, debates, do you know what I mean? But anyway, that's my 15 minutes of ranting on what I've learned from using the GT-1. Did I miss anything there? ODs, preamps. Preamps, again, they'll get you like 70 or 80% of the way there. I tend to just, as most people do, they find an amp simulator that they like, and they'll just stick with that. Mine was a twin. The Fender Twin on this is absolutely phenomenal. But again, about as phenomenal as a sub £200 board will get you. So my advice is find an amp sim that you like, stick with it. You know, just watch my other videos for more advice. But thanks for watching today, guys. Cheers.